So welcome back to this week of the Finance Time podcast, and welcome back to episode three. Okay, today there's a lot going on in the past week, and we need to discuss about it. So first would be Apple and Alibaba, which is a very interesting partnership.
Yep. Like Apple have been in the AI game for a while. They partner with OpenAI and they try to get ahead. But then when you see some development, Apple actually is not in the leading space. So maybe partnering with Alibaba would be one of the breaking points for them, since they have one of the biggest cloud services as Alibaba, and they are able to provide them insane amount of data from the Alibaba platform to Taobao to a bunch of different software that under Alibaba bracket.
It seems more like a opening them up into the Chinese market,
Yep.
since Chinese technology have been very progressive and getting way better than the US. For example, the cars, they have advanced way further than the US. So in terms of this phone, for example, phones, Huawei is making better model and more advanced technology than Apple is doing. In a sense, partnership with Alibaba opened themselves up to the Chinese market more. So having that integrated AI that meets the Chinese government regulations, it really opened them up to the Chinese market more and allow them to get ahead of their competitors.
Yes, indeed. The Chinese have a lot more efficient and cheaper way to implement in a lot of stuff than the US, where Apple decide to develop their AI in Chinese market might not be a bad idea for them because you know how expensive talents are in the North American space, where Chinese one are significantly more affordable. And as you used to see last time we talked about DeepSeek, I'm sure they have some insane engineer there that's able to capable and help them out.
Yeah, so it really is just a strategy to really get them inside the Chinese market
Yep.
because it's very competitive there in terms
Yep.
of their technology. They're very behind.
Yep.
So another interesting is when we talk about China, recent tariffs, 10%, right? So recent 10% tariffs on China, but the big concern is that the inflation cost right now.
Yep.
So in terms of like inflation costs, it has rise cut this part out. So it has rise to by 0.5% of the CPI, like the Consumer Price Index, is right by 0.5%, and inflation went up annually to 3% rate. This is very concerning. It's just in the first week alone, inflation went up by 1%. So what's your thought on that? Why is this inflation going up so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, these kind of policy they implement, it takes some time to directly impact it to consumer. So there is some layback time. So for example, the Federal Reserve has 6, sometimes even 12 months of layback time for the interest rate to the market. Same as these policies, tariffs. Company do not adjust their pricing right away, but then they will be more aware in that. So I believe this 0.5% might not be directly linked to the tariff, but it is a sign where inflation is happening again in the States. And that tariff could have boosted a lot more because, as you know, over half of the food imports are from China.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of electronics from China. Everything is made in China almost. So when you put tariffs on them, in the end, consumer pays the tax,
Yeah.
pays the tariffs, and they will suffer from inflation. And that's the challenging point for the Trump administration, where they need to control. Hey, tariff is a tools for negotiation. It's not necessarily creating a win-win situation, but it's a good negotiation tools because it really hurts Canada. So that's
Yeah.
why Trudeau talk with Trump. It hurts the Chinese. So that's why they try to talk together right now. And that makes it a interesting tactic and really challenge how good Trump administrative can control how much they put in tariff, how the interest rates, how those different kind of monetary policy can help those US citizens. As they said, they're trying to open up more drills, mining more oil to
Yeah.
help out
Employment.
the employment, reduce the inflation. But how well it will be implemented, not sure. But they will definitely bring a lot of uncertainty, since if it doesn't do appropriately, there could be another hyperinflation, another rate increase. That will be tough.
Yeah, talking about that, if we look specifically at big grocery stores, for example, Walmart, 50% of their products is imported from China. And if we look at Target, 65 to 75% of their products imported from China.
Yep.
And Costco, it goes up all the way to 80% of their products
Yep.
imported from China. So thinking about that, these big grocery stores in the US, they're very reliant on product produced overseas. And doing that increase in tariffs, the putting the tariffs on China, it does not really like benefit the consumer in a way. And also it could hurt the business. But overall business is gonna operate in a, profit. So the price, the increase in tariff, it's just gonna be passed on to consumers, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what they are trying to do is to move the production back to the state. But then the problem is it takes time. And
Yes.
during these periods, it's gonna be painful for American consumers, Canadian consumers due to the tariffs and taxes, and it's just gonna hurt a lot of people. But to him, maybe that's necessary. Maybe there's a potential trade-off where even though they cannot negotiate with the Chinese, but these tariffs makes more company consider produce locally in America, which to him maybe is still a good idea because he again he pays a lot of attention to the deficit, and that itself is a interesting approach into economy since U.S. operate in a different way than back then in the trading economy,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they influence from the financial market, military market. Yeah, and I don't think he should look into economy just by import-export deficits. I think those are just excuse for further control negotiations and getting more for the US since he run in America first policy, right?
Yeah. Do you think that America would subsidize for the citizen with the increase in consumer products?
No idea, man.
Because it's a possibility that with the increase and then the job not yet being implemented, job market not being
Uh,
quickly created enough, like you said, is that the government would provide a certain subsidies to the citizens so that they can survive this wave of increasing product prices.
yeah, inflation comes. You
Yeah.
increase money supply, you gave out the money to citizens, it goes with inflation. So is that a sustainable approach? Not necessarily. It could be a temporary run like COVID, but as you all know, there's a backlash, right? After they give out some money and employment subsidies, now they suffer hyperinflation for the last not hyperinflation, but inflation for the last year or two, and that's tough. So again, those are a lot of uncertainty, and they really need to control how much tariff are they pushing in, how much job are they opening in,
Yeah.
and in order to compensate those effects that they bring to the citizens. And maybe it could be a negative effect in the short run, but long-term benefit for the state in the future.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So we can see that because of this inflation rate, commodities like cryptocurrency and gold have risen
Yep.
in a certain point. Gold's at its highest price point in this month.
Yep.
It reached it a few months ago before the election. It
Yep.
kind of went down a bit, and after the election, after all the tariffs
Yep.
is implemented, it's back at its highest
Yep.
point. So, what is your thought on like cryptocurrency moving forward, like as a anti-inflation, you know, diversified asset?
Oh, all goes back to trust,
Yeah.
right? Like why people buy gold, why central bank recognize gold, because people trust gold have value, silver have value, crypto have value. In the end of the day, it's about do
Supply.
both of us recognize it?
Yeah.
And one of the major reasons that gold went up that high value is due to central banks are buying gold for reserve. Since the US is giving us a lot of bonds, they're in deficit. At the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty in the currency market as tariffs happen. The easiest way for a lot of countries is just to depreciate their dollars, so their import will be relatively cheaper. In that case, for central banks, it would be tough.
Yeah.
Then the best way to compensate it is to get gold for central bank. But for
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies, it's another story since, again, through the SHA-256, the encryption to ensure it's uncrackable, unstoppable, it's unique.
Yeah.
But again, with quantum computer, I doubt how long it can survive, even though there is like post quantum machines or solutions for Bitcoin right now. But with that threat itself, I do not think central bank itself will hold it in the long run. But instead, it's people who needs to clean their money,
Yeah.
people who needs to who wants to speculate with their money, get into the cryptocurrency. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan or believer in it, but I see why people think they are useful. But I see there's better investment opportunity in different places and better asset to hold in uncertainty period, such as gold, such as like
Gold.
stock for good companies, since they generate yield and the yield itself is actual cash. Crypto doesn't generate cash. Gold doesn't generate cash.
Yeah. So talking about that specific topic, we can look at GameStop.
Yeah.
They're looking into investing a large part of their fund into cryptocurrency. What's your thought on that? Like you already said that cryptocurrency is basically a supply and demand game. It has a limited supply, and depending on how much people want it, how much people hold it, the value increases. But it's also a very effective tool for like anti-inflation because the supply doesn't change. Unlike cash that we hold every day, that the supply of cash can be printed, increase over time. But then the fact is, with cryptocurrency, there's this fixed supply. So what's your thought on
Only
that?
when demand more than supply, then it's valuable.
Yeah.
If the demand is lower than supply, then that itself doesn't worth any value, right? And where does that demand comes from? It comes from uncertainty. It comes from scares, and it's speculative.
Yeah.
And for MicroStrategy and
GameStop.
GameStop, like they trying to get into the crypto space, sure, right? Like I know MicroStrategy have a infinite money glitch through a lot of leverages. That itself, I'm not a huge fan of it because, again, you buy crypto and you borrow money out of it, and then because its face value increase, and then when the face value increase, you can borrow more. You re-leverage, right? And you issue bonds, you issue different kind of financial tools to raise more money so you can buy it and drive the market up. That itself is it sounds infinite money glitch, but then the thing is, that's leverages. Those are you borrow money to buy it, assuming the price will keep going up. And when the price goes down to a certain point, you need to liquidate it. And when MicroStrategy holds a significant portion in the Bitcoin supply, that itself will influence the entire market, right? I don't remember the exact percentage. Maybe it's 2 or 9%, but then it's a significant market share that they can influence it. So that price itself, I honestly think is a speculative price. Okay.
So for me, I think the real concern is how volatile cryptocurrency is. For example, if we look a few years back in 2024 and 2023, when crypto was not really that, it was in a bearish market. The reason why it went to that bearish market is because this acquisition on the Binance CEO. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was acquisition about Binance CEO having some sort of
Job.
yeah.
Money laundering.
Yeah, money laundering so it affects the space a lot. So these types of news, and we've moved back. You remember there was a very popular crypto.
FTX.
Yeah,
Sam Bankman-Fried.
yeah, Sam Bankman. It was a huge thing, and then it's just pop, and then how you see how all the entire currency, Bitcoin. It's just like it depends on how much people trust on that, on cryptocurrency in general. So the trust and like the demand on it is really affected of how the price performs.
Yeah, and well, people say when the market is more mature, more developed, there will be less fluctuation. But again, it depends on how people buy it in the first place, right? If they're buying it to hope the price double, then when they see it drops, they will sell. If they buy and assume, oh, in 20 years as an alternative asset and they're not selling, if there's a lot of people in that market like that, then the price will relatively less volatile. So the volatility itself shows relatively less immature and a lot of speculative in the market.
Yeah.
Where in stock market, since it's mature, people knows the fundamental values of the company. They know it's underpriced sometimes, where they're able to buy it. So the market have a standard, have a benchmark where there will be least volatile, at least a lot less volatile than crypto, and that itself stops me from looking into crypto, right? Because again, sometimes we need the money, there's liquidity stuff, and especially when there's a bunch of people leverage, it puts us in risk, even though we might not buy in leverage. The volatility itself, not a lot of people can handle it. Yeah. economics
I
policy?
think like overall, like it's a very speculative market, and
Yeah.
the volatility of cryptocurrencies really show. When Trump announced his support for crypto, it went all the way to 100K.
Yeah.
Yeah, that show how like regulations really impact the price of crypto. If like the world somehow agrees like, oh, let's fully implement crypto, then the price will always go up. And then what if the world just like agrees like, oh, let's completely ban crypto because it's a bad platform, there's no
Hmm.
regulation. The real gem in crypto is decentralization. It's
Hmm.
like no one entity, no government have control over it. But then the policy and the change in policy does have an effect on its price value.
Yeah. So when people talk about decentralization, it's about like how decentralized you want it to be. Without a central platform, you need to go for stock, you need to call every single owner
Yeah.
and figure out who is willing to sell it to you.
Mm.
But if you centralize it, someone is able to do the middleman, then it will save each of us a lot of time. And when people are saying, oh, policies, regulations, yes, indeed, they're financial products. Of course, they need to be regulated or else people speculate with it. But when you look into the biggest crypto holders, the 10% of Bitcoin supply is controlled by less than 1% of the wallet. So it means less than 1% of people control the entire supply, 10% of the supply, which is enough to move the entire market.
Yeah.
And that itself is a big no-no for me. Like, how decentralized is it really to be? Like, when the entire supply, a lot of the supply is centralized. Even though, yeah, the idea is, oh, everyone hold a portion of it, but then that's a supply-demand market where there's certain people who have more control than us. And in that case, how decentralized is it be? I doubt it.
Because they can manipulate the price
Yeah,
value.
I really doubt it. So in that way, I don't think crypto will be a great alternative asset to hold in the future than company stock. Right?
Yeah. Okay. So talking about company stocks, let's move on to Airbnb.
Oh yeah, cool.
So Airbnb had a really good earnings call and their performance really well, and they announced a lot of plans to expand their company vision. So what is your thoughts on that?
Oh, Airbnb. It's a great platform. I bet you guys use it a lot too, right? Like I'm planning to travel around to maybe Mexico soon and then look into Airbnb. There's great price and then there's great options that hotel doesn't offer. So they do have a
Competitive advantage.
competitive advantage in that way where we get to try different housing in different style that a lot of the time hotel is just typical and boring, right?
Yeah. And especially when you're traveling a lot group, it's really beneficial. But what Airbnb vision is to make them a platform like for people to use more often. So for example, they provide workshops and tour guides. That's kind of their business plan over the next 5 years. So Airbnb seems to be a really strong candidate in terms of like travel in general. It does have competitive advantage, and it has a good plan and strategy of growth overall.
Yep.
So it's a solid company.
Yeah, like travel growth is bombing right now after COVID, and airline are recovering, supply chain are recovering, where people can move around cheaper, easily. When I look at my friends in Europe, in UK, they can fly to maybe Italy with what, like 100 Canadian dollar back and forth, and they can travel around in the weekend. They will go to check and climb around. They use Airbnb to book all their hotels, to book their services, tour guides. It's insane. And I do see a lot of potential in that where people would love to travel. Who doesn't, right? When you
Yeah.
go to, imagine you go to Czech, right? And you
Yeah.
see all those snow mountains and then you ski around with $50 and you pay Airbnb maybe $10 so they can plan everything out for you.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great deal to me.
Yeah, because in terms of that, is that their stock right now is at the highest price point in 6 months. I mean, it's performing well after that earning call.
Yep.
It's something to take note of is that this company, they're still growing. They have more plans that they try to expand to the market. So they basically want to be dominant in the travel industry.
Yeah.
And talking about companies doing well and expanding, one notable thing is Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon. You heard, I saw news recently, like in New York, people are complaining about the low wages and the unaffordable wage that they're giving out. But at the same time, they are trying to expand their other markets in Europe,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, Amazon is an insane company,
Yeah.
right? Like 1000x company growth, and then also growth in America, Canada, Mexico,
Yeah.
Europe.
So they're trying to grow their European market more.
Yes, indeed. And since, I've heard almost one out of two family in North America have Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So that itself is an insane number, which
The
drives
subscription, yeah.
the subscription model, and that itself shows, hey, they probably maximize the market share in North America. So that's why they actually opened their first physical store in Italy, right?
Yeah.
And trying to expand this influences in the European markets. Yeah. So tell me more about the physical store in Italy from Amazon.
So what they're trying to do is basically expand their European market presence. So first, their Italy store will be about beauty and personal care, all that, and they try to expand to Germany, into France as well. Basically, they're trying to be more dominant in that European market. Because in terms of, if you think about European, when you order products online, what companies come to mind?
European retail products.
Yeah.
Nestle, Colgate. Actually, no idea.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing. In North America, when you think about ordering products online, you think about Amazon. So they kind of like trying the same technique here, just
Yeah.
to show their brand presence and then try to implement what they implemented in the US and Canada back into the European market.
Yeah. But then again, just be aware the European Union,
Regulations, yeah.
the regulations are tough, especially they have a lot of monopoly law that is a lot stricter than North America. And that's why they maybe pick a new niche in the pharmaceutical and beauty space where they start expanding it in another approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard like pharmaceutical and beauty, those are some of the highest margin products ever exist in human history.
Yeah.
And then by expanding its market share in Europe, getting more reputations and quality products, quality beauty services, beauty products, then that may be an interesting approach for them to get into the European market by only specializing in certain field without getting those, monopoly regulations stopping them. Yeah, and the other thing that I want to talk about is the super microcomputer stocks price.
Yeah, they've been doing pretty well. They used to have like an accounting problem, but then they fixed it. But I want to go back to talking about the European market and
Okay.
the European regulation in general. You think there's like a friction between European and the US right now?
Oh, indeed.
Have you seen the speech? They basically went
The Munich
Summit-
Security
Summit, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So JD Vance went there and pointed out every problem with every country straight into their face, and that kind of caused a lot of friction. And they also threatened to like take out U.S. military and U.S. Military support from that area because they're not benefit from it. So I think in a sense that the U.S. is trying to be more efficient.
Yeah, the Doge, right?
Yeah, they're being. It's in truth like sometimes they're spending money on things that does not benefit them, and they're trying to look at areas where they can monetize that benefit. You can see that's why tariffs coming in. Like, okay, we want to make more favorable trade deal. So tariffs on Europe or China, like they're using negotiation and they're using the power of the military that they're expanding and giving off to really try to like get them back on the standing of like benefiting from it, not just like losing money every year because they spend a lot on their, like the U.S. is the number one country that spend the most on their military.
Yeah, and I think the number 2 plus number 7, all 6 of the other country combined is not, they cannot even outcompete U.S. spending. But I think we need to look into this way, where U.S. plays a role of global police.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
They are the one who dictate the order, control how the world politics, how those influences back to the U.S. itself. So having such a strong military, having those Navy pilots, and spending so much money makes sense, right? But I mean, how expensive those expenses are will be a big deal. Have you seen like in the conference in the Congress, they're holding a bunch of nutshells and calling like it costs $35,000 to make a pack of screws nuts. So
Yeah, why?
why? Because a lot of bureaucracy. Because because they source it in American company because they have I have no idea. Like I have no idea how can a pack of screw cost $35,000. And have you seen like Elon Musk figure out like in the SEC or something? Uh, oh, don't quote SEC. Okay, Elon Musk figure out like there's two mugs or a pack of mugs that cost like tens of thousands of dollars just for mugs in the office. So there's a lot of these kind of uh, spending that makes no sense that they need to, hey, time to figure it out. We have too much of a deficit. We cannot borrow
Yeah.
money insanely forever. Central banks stop trusting us that much where they are not willing to buy that many US security bonds as deposit anymore. They use gold right now.
Yeah, yeah.
They may be looking into crypto, but one thing for sure, they trust us less because we issue too much free money and free bonds outside.
Yeah, I think in a way that makes sense to be more efficient, like in terms of the government,
Yep,
in
yep,
terms of the defense policy.
yep.
I think U.S. taking the right path, but then there's a lot of backlash from it as
Yeah.
well. It's the same like last time we said that we have to see.
Yeah.
It's not yet predictable. We can't really see
Yeah.
what's gonna happen next. It could go either way. It could be
Yeah.
super good and put U.S. back on top, or it could be super back and just make U.S. go down even further.
Yeah, it's about operation. Like there's a lot of policy that the Trump or the administrative is trying to push. It sounds great. It sounds like deporting those undocumented people in USA. Yeah, so they will fight for less of the job. But you need to look into the numbers and the actual fact
Yeah.
where they do a lot of job that Americans are not willing to do. They build houses. They as contractor. Yes, they are undocumented, but they are doing it in a cheaper rate than
Yeah.
regular American are willing to take in a much larger scale. There's a lot less construction workers that is documented in US itself. And by deporting them, the consequence is, hey, you have less supply in housing,
Yeah, it's back to like less labor.
less laborers, and it takes longer time. It gets more expensive. No one builds it. There's a lot of backlash that I I don't think they done it properly. That I think they need to look into that a lot more carefully than just promising voters. It's just a lot of long. You need to see it in a longer game.
Yeah.
Whether it's not just okay deporting those undocumented. Some of them cause crime, right? For sure, and we shouldn't accept that as a norm in a society. But then, hey, you need to look in the bright side, and you need to consider outweigh the pros and outweigh the cons, which one's better, and make the decisions.
It's like immigrants, they make up 5% of the entire labor market
Yep.
in the US. That's just a big chunk, even
Yep.
though if they're illegals, yeah. But in truth is like there's multiple ways you could do this. First, you basically strengthen the border control, and whoever's in the country has proper job, you give them basically a PR. But then that would also not stand with what he promised in the beginning. Like, oh, we'll get rid of all the
Yeah.
immigrants. It's in a way, there's a lot of things to consider, and it's really hard to pinpoint like a perfect solution. But there's also like a lot of ways and benefit. Yeah, if you remove illegal immigrants, it opens jobs more to people in the country.
In the country, yeah.
Yeah, employment. There's more employment for the citizens and stuff like that. And I think Canada's also facing that problem, like where illegal immigrants are taking, not
Canada is a different issue. I think Canada, one of the biggest issue is we have a match. Like we are not able to match talents with the job itself.
Yeah.
So I personally know a bunch of friends who is having master experiences, a bunch of working experiences, or even entrepreneur experiences.
Yeah.
But because hey, Canadian company, they don't favor these kind of work experiences. They don't appreciate it. Then they cannot get the job that they wanted. And there's not available jobs for them too, right, in the market because it's a slow economy and it's slowing down. So yeah, I think Canada is a different problem than the state, where the state is still operatable. They can still operate, but then they didn't consider it in the full picture. That's my argument to them. And instead, they maybe should look into, hey, they should process their working permit quicker.
Yeah.
They should open certain stream in a very efficient way. Maybe digitalize it, and so document can be approved instead of 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
Can be approved in 2 months, right? It makes no sense to me why do you need to refill document that's sent to you with systems that with certain format take 4 years? You're not building an entire system to document it, but you're just reviewing it. So I don't get it. There's a lot of inefficiency. There's a lot of time that I think they're not running it in the most efficient way that leads to these kind of problems for undocumented immigrants, undocumented workers, which could have maybe boost the economy in the States. So that's what Trump is going to do. He's trying to speed up some of the immigration states because hey, US is still an immigration city. You need those talent.
Yeah.
You need
It's
those
diverse.
workers. Yes, you need to be first. So you can keep having all the best of the best talent, skills, money, capital, companies in the US. But that itself needs a lot of policy to intercept together. It needs a lot of people who try to work together instead of pointing fingers, blaming, hey, you are the fault of all of this, while they might not be.
One thing that I want to highlight that is also a costly operation into moving immigrants.
Yep.
I don't understand why we don't use that amount of money to like try to integrate what we have, and then like for example, if the immigrant is doing proper jobs and they're first class citizens, they obey the rules, they pay their taxes, do all that. Why don't we integrate them? Why don't we integrate good citizens in society? And so basically like this, it's been a week of full like there's a lot of changes going on with the market, with the inflation rates, and policies, as well as like in changing like different companies' strategies, planning strategies and stuff like that.
Also diplomatic situation between US and Europe. The Munich Securities Summit is everyone should actually pay attention to that because it actually influences the entire European security, politics, and money influences and flows within the next 5 years, where a lot of new policies will be implemented through that. So yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty again, and I think under the Trump administration, uncertainty will be the biggest theme word where we need to strive. Unfortunately, we are in a generation filled with uncertainty, but with uncertainty there is potential gains. There's opportunities.
There's always opportunities, and there's always a gap for the market for us to exploit.
Definitely. That's why I love that Chinese word 危機危機. It means crisis, but then
opportunity crisis.
But then opportunity. Crisis at the end, there's opportunity. So if you are able to analyze it correctly, able to pay attention into different crises, then you'll gain some opportunity. Hey, the tariffs might hurt Canadian company, but it makes Canadians stronger and tighter together. Hey, Quebec is singing their songs with us, and then maybe we can expand our supply chain to Europe. We do no longer rely on the US that much anymore. We remove the border control, we remove the border provincial taxes in each other. So Canada's economy can operate more efficiently. So yes, there's crisis, but there's also opportunity for Canadian company and Canadian do better in running our country and doing businesses with us.
Yeah, in truth, there's always opportunity within a crisis. It depends on how you position yourself.
Yes, sir.
So basically that's what we have for this week of episode 3. I hope you guys find it interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and also we have different platforms. We have on Instagram, TikTok,
Facebook,
LinkedIn.
So,
LinkedIn's already there, but
it's already. Dude, you gotta share it out, and so people can follow us.
Yeah.
Repost them with their thoughts. So, after listening to this podcast, I find it very insightful, and then thank you ABCDE for getting these kind of insights and getting into these jobs that I might be interested in. Those LinkedIn posts.
Yeah. So, we'll create a link tree and we'll put it in our bio, and you can go across our platforms. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.